be here, and I'm not convinced at all that climate's changing. It's cold out there. Where was it when we needed it? I want to begin. I'm going to talk about 45 minutes and hopefully open the floor for comments and discussion with you. But I want to describe what I think is kind of a benchmark of how far we're going to have to go on this issue. And this is a letter that was written in the Arkansas Democrat, and it's not a letter that was intended as a gag. It's actually a real letter, and it goes like this. It's from a, well, I'll leave her name off it. You may have noticed that March of this year was particularly hot. As a matter of fact, I understand that it was the hottest March since the beginning of the last century. All the trees were fully leafed out, and legions of bugs and snakes were crawling around during a time in Arkansas when, on a normal year, we might see a snowflake or two. This should come as no surprise to any reasonable person. As you know, daylight saving time started almost a month early this year. I said a long way to go. You would think that members of Congress would have considered the warming effect that an extra hour of daylight would have on did it? Perhaps this is another plot by a liberal Congress to make us believe that global warming is a real threat. Perhaps next time there should be serious studies performed before Congress passes laws with such far-reaching effects. We've got our work cut out for us. All right, what I want to do tonight, I want to talk about climate change and politics. So this is divided into several different parts. I want to go through some things that you already know about climate science. This is simply part of the public record. I want to talk about how we think about that issue. I'm going to describe an effort which I've been a part of for the last year and a half to develop a climate action plan for the next U.S. administration. Excuse me, U.S. administration that focuses on the first 100 days of that administration, rather parallel to Franklin Roosevelt's 100 days. We've been meeting with presidential candidates of both parties. This is not a Democratic or Republican thing. And I want to close by talking about what I think the issues will have to be as you think about focus in the nation. This, in every way, is a political issue, and it is upon us now as a serious global issue because our politics were not adequate. And we can't let this ever happen again. We cannot come this close to catastrophe ever again. And so that's the concern I've got. Gus Smith at Yale describes climate change as the perfect problem. And on the screen behind me is Walt Kelly's wonderful cartoon character, Pogo, who uttered probably the most often quoted line in cartooning history, and it was, "We bet the enemy, and he is us." And climate change is that kind of issue. And if I was to pull out a weapon behind the podium here, say a sawed-off shotgun, and kind of casually walk out behind this mic, I'd have your attention, because what would kick in would be your fight-flight mechanism. Your adrenal system would kick in. You'd be saying, you know what, climate change may be an interesting subject, but I don't need to know much about it. And you'd be headed to the doors. Or you'd be figuring out how to charge them. We're good if there is somebody riding over the hill. That's where we have been at our best. Our heroes are mostly violent people. And now climate change, and we meet the enemy, he's us. It is insinuated in virtually everything we do. It's the perfect problem. Think about the complexity of the science and how we sell the complexity of this science. This is a tough issue. We got the first warning. We began to work on the President's Climate Action Plan and found that the first warning to the U.S. President dated back to 1965. Jimmy Carter was given a more thorough briefing and a more ominous-sounding warning in 1978. That was 30 years ago. But the science was beginning to form. It goes back to Sementi Uranius in the latter part of the 19th century. But we've learned a whole lot. We're running this one-time experiment on planet Earth. The science is complex. It's a perfect problem. And then there's this difficulty that there is this time lag between the emission of heat-trapping gases and the actual effect. So by the time something comes out of a tailpipe or a smokestack, it takes about 30 years for us to see the actual effect of forcing the climate in a different direction. And that 30-year lag will drop, told by members of the IPCC, to 20 years, because the ocean uptake of carbon is going to be less vigorous and so forth. So the time lag is going to be, but it's so easy to ignore things that happened 30 years off, even if we knew that they were going to happen for sure. And then there's